Greetings, urban farmers, gardeners, and healthy food visionaries. Farmer Greg here, and welcome to the 374th episode of the Urban Farm Podcast, where every day we work together to educate and inspire you to become part of your food revolution. Do you want to save money at the grocery store, eat more organic, whole foods, cultivate food security, and feel more connected to the earth? If so, then growing your own food is a no-brainer. You wouldn't believe how many people come to me claiming that they can't grow their own food. They think they don't have enough space, that they're too busy, or that they simply don't have what it takes. Perhaps you've fallen for one of these gardening myths. If you think you can't grow food, or if you think the only food that you have access to is what you buy in the grocery store, I have a life-changing webinar that you need to see. It's free and will help you unearth your inner gardener. I've helped thousands of people just like you learn to grow their own food, and I'm speaking from my own experience when I say that with the right knowledge in place, there is no such thing as a black thumb. With this webinar, you can begin making your garden dreams come true and start growing delicious, nutritious food for your family. Just text GARDEN to 44222 or go to iwanttogarden.com and you will receive our free webinar about the 7 key factors you need to know to grow your own food. Remember, that's GARDEN to 44222 or iwanttogarden.com. Today on our podcast, we have someone who digs into the vast world of invisible life in our soil. We're talking with Anthony Dominguez about soil microbes. Anthony is an Arizona native from the town of Gila Bend with a degree in microbiology from the University of Arizona. He is the co-founder and C.O.O. of HiKreations, a company created to bring beneficial microbes to the world and farmers everywhere. With an organic philosophy and a science core, they have developed a line of soil amendments for both indoor and outdoor cultivation. He has a long interest in microbes, especially in their beneficial properties. Welcome to the show today, Anthony. Are you ready to rock the microbes?
Yes, let's rock and roll.
Sweet. So I shared a bit about you. Can you fill in the blanks for us and share more about the path you took to get where you're at today?
I would say my path started from a young age. From the first time I got sick, getting that little jar of penicillin for your strep throat, I kind of wondered what's making me feel better and what, made me feel sick. So that kind of sparked my interest, always kind of like diseases and what caused them. And the fact that, we couldn't see these microbes or any of these viruses that got us sick. But, growing up in my small town of Gila Bend, definitely agriculture was always in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather worked on a commercial farm for years. He still does. They did alfalfa, cotton, and wheat. But on the other side, my other grandfather is the complete opposite. He's a small kind of hippie type deal. He always grew food in his backyard. He even opened up a store in Camp Verde. Yeah, he had a little spot called the Health Hut, and it was always awesome to go visit him in the summers. He'd have his just shelves filled with organic foods and vitamins. He always had like animals in the backyard, and it was like, hey, where'd that goat go those last time here? And he's like, kind of sent him off to the butcher. As I kind of got older and progressed, I really saw my path go towards, agriculture and science because of a science teacher I had in 7th grade. And he was showing me how to measure water and look at stuff under a microscope. And I just knew that was something I wanted to do. And it was awesome is that I actually ended up meeting that teacher again as an advisor at the U of A. And he definitely pushed me into the College of Agricultures and Life Sciences.
Nice.
And there we got exposed to just a whole bunch of fun stuff. And he took us on a couple trips because we were in an agriculture group. It was called Manners, Minority in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. And I can remember driving up to Sacramento for a conference, and we passed a dairy, and everyone's kind of like, ew, gross. They don't like that smell. Me growing up where I did, I was used to it. But it was one thing that he said. He's like, you guys may smell crap, but, that's money to a farmer. That's how they live. That really resonated with me. And some of the work we do is dirty. It smells, and we get down in the dirt and we play with the microbes and our vegetables, and I just love that stuff.
Oh, yeah. You know, I had my first business here in the mid 70s. I used to clean, service, and build fish ponds, and getting down and mucking out fish ponds. You know, maybe I'm strange, but I loved the smell, and it was great fun work. I remember that.
It's real interesting, right? You work with something for so long and then some smell bothers people. It just, my first time working with the bacteria, it was, real strong, almost ammonia-like because they were fixing nitrogen.
All right.
Yeah, and I almost didn't like it. And then as you progress and just work with it for so long, you enjoy it. And it's funny to see other people's reactions when they come into your laboratory or your work and they're like, this smells. And you're like, yeah, awesome. It, smells right.
Right, exactly. So what are microbes? Let's just start there.
Yeah, so microbes are microscopic organisms, meaning that we can't see them with the human eye. And you would definitely need some sort of equipment like a microscope. I even think there's large enough microorganisms out there that you can see with a really good specific magnifying glass.
Wow.
Most of the time you're going to see them under a microscope on a slide or something. And you could break it down into different categories. There are probably about 5 right now. It changes from time to time, but you're going to have your bacteria, your fungi, your viruses, algae, protozoa, and parasites. And that'll just range from what they can and can't do. Your bacteria are definitely going to be your most numerous ones, especially in the soil.
Right.
But you're also going to have tons of fungi and viruses. They're so small. I really don't have a good grip on those yet. You have some expensive equipment to actually look at those guys.
Wow. So are soil microbes different than other microbes?
No, that's just all about their environment. They're all going to stay within the same type of categories that we just mentioned. But some of the soil microbes that everyone are going to be familiar with is like your trichoderma, your mycos, your bacillus species, your pseudomonads. But there's nothing really different. They're going to function the same way. Really interesting, like bacillus species. We all know that's in the soil, right?
Well, we do now because you just told us.
All right. But like the same bacillus species, you can find a bacillus anthracis out there, which is the causative agent of anthrax.
Oh.
You can go find one that's non-virulent, which means it's not going to harm a human being or it's not going to cause harm to something. And you go find that on a cow right now. You go swab a cow and I'm sure you could pull up bacillus anthracis.
The
non-virulent one. And the reason why it wouldn't be virulent or harmful to anyone is because of its gene expressions.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's a really deep conversation. You're going to have to boil that down to my level. Gene expression, what's that mean?
When we're all created on the bacteria or humans, we all have a set of genes and chromosomes that we get. It's just basically what is expressed is what you are exposed to. I'm trying to make it a little bit more clear, but just like say, for instance, what we do, we take bacteria from the soil and we put them back in there so we know they perform well and they're always going to perform certain functions. If you take something out of its environment and place it like say in a freezer like we would do to preserve some bacteria, it'll actually lose genes because of the environment you put it in.
Oh, interesting.
So like in the case of, Bacillus anthracis, it's just all depending on where it's at and the environment, and that determines what genes are expressed. Just like, how humans evolved. We evolved around our surroundings. It's kind of simple like that,
Right, exactly. So which microbes are beneficial? Which ones are the ones we're looking for in soil?
Oh man, you've got a lot of like Bacillus amyloliquefaciens, Bacillus subtilis, which is a very popular one. You can just go on and on and on, but definitely your Bacillus species, and I really like the Pseudomonad species. And this is because you've got some very special properties. With all the commercial farming that goes on right now, there's a lot of pesticides being sprayed on our foods and in the fields. And what we found with the Pseudomonad species is they're actually great degraders of those chemicals and molecules. So when you put them down on the ground, it actually removes some of that pesticide, that residual that's still in there. Those are going to be like your Pseudomonads petita, your Pseudomonads fluorescens, your Pseudomonads stutzeri. They're just a great benefit. And they even have some anti-pathogenic properties, meaning that they can outcompete like some of your fungus pathogens out in the fields that, you'd be dealing with, even in the fields and even in your small farms,
Right. These beneficials, they're doing work for us.
They're doing a lot of work for us. And I feel sometimes it's unrecognized just because of the regulations and red tape you have to go through to get them registered. If you want to say anything about it, killing a specific pathogen or reducing a mold, it's like $1 million process you have to go through.
Wow.
Even though these things are great for your farm or your soil and your plants. It's just if you want to get it registered and sold somewhere, that's the process you have to go to. It's a little slow, man. It's troubling to think about that these big pesticide companies can just be pushing all these chemicals and synthetics into the ground, and yet we found something that's all natural. It's right in the organic philosophy, and it could definitely, help turn the agriculture world around. It's not going to happen because of like money issues,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
By adding these beneficial microbes, Bacillus and the Pseudomonas, and I'm sure there's others, what kind of results are we going to see? What should be expected?
You're going to see a number of good results. One you can definitely notice is the availability of nutrients. What happens when you inoculate your soil is the bacteria don't need all those micronutrients that we put down. They want a carbon source. And that's, all your nutrients are going to be attached to some sort of carbon. And what your bacteria can do is grab that carbon and release the micronutrients that the plants are wanting. You should be able to use less inputs and get the same results using some of these microbials. And from, like a disease standpoint, if you get real specific with what species you're putting down, you can use it as almost a biocontrol or have it as like your integrated pest management for, reduced disease pressure.
So what kind of what are we adding? And are we adding it to the soil? Do we spray it on the plants? How does this stuff get added?
So there's like a yes and no to everything about that. What you would be adding is probably something off your shelf, a retail shelf. It could be, like you said, some of those Bacillus species. I feel pretty safe using those as a foliar. One things I wouldn't use as a foliar is a homebrew, like a compost tea. And that's just because you don't know what's actually in there. You brewed that up yourself. There was no way to identify those species. As opposed to like a microbial you find on the shelf, it's been identified via third party and it's okay to sell. Overall, you can add them almost anywhere. So if you're the type of person who likes to make your compost, you can add it to your compost, let that mature, and they're going to be in there. Or if you're just regular, watering, you can always add it into your watering. And then there's some that you would even like to spray on as a foliar, to get those photosynthetic bacteria up and running. No, but it's just going to be your personal preference. I know some people won't spray their plants. Other people, spray them all the time. People like that soil, like a super soil, where it's a whole bunch of amendments and you let it cure and all you're adding is water.
Right. So when you say foliar, tell me what that means.
So like a spray application. So something, you would mix it in with, say, water or, a seaweed amendment. So, that's been pretty popular. And some seaweeds actually have, seaweed and kelp, they'll actually have some natural microbes in there already. So when you're adding more to it, it's just, icing on the cake. And for a foliar, you just gently spray the leaves until they're almost dripping. But what that's going to do is, there'll be nutrients on the leaves from whatever other amendments you put down. And those bacteria will then start to break it down, making it more available for the plants. So they don't all get washed away. The plant's actually able to absorb some of those nutrients through the leaves.
Wow. All right, cool. So tell us about some of your products, because you guys make products for this.
Oh, yes, we definitely do. We have our soil one, our big one. That's our organic Actina. That is a streptomyces species product. And a little bit about streptomyces and actinomyces, their composition in the soil, it's about 80% of the microbes in there. So you can tell that these guys are very important in the soil, and that's why, it's a soil inoculant for us. They also have a history of producing some of the strongest antibiotics around. Streptomycin was produced by Streptomyces griseus, and that was like the first antibiotic used to treat tuberculosis, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Going even further into that, to the soil microbes, about 90% of the antibiotics we use today were taken from the soil, and most of those antibiotics come from your Streptomyces species.
Curious.
Yeah.
You're just returning back to our roots, so to speak.
Yeah, just putting them back in there.
Yeah. So what is HiKreations?
So we are a scientific solutions company, and we first started off just doing blogs and writing after hours, just trying to work our way into the local communities. We were currently working with the cannabis cactus, doing a few of their articles every month. About a year ago, it's been over a year ago since we left our previous employment, but we decided that, we want to do nutrients and we want to do microbials because that's just what we love to do. I absolutely love going, making a mix of bacteria or growing up something new. And, just this organic philosophy, using all natural ingredients like your fish and your kelps, and then using bacteria to break it all down and release it in the soil just works for us. And I really like meeting people that share that same philosophy and idea, definitely trying to get away from the synthetics and chemicals around the world. And overall, we just want to educate people. A lot of people don't know about beneficial bacteria in the soil.
Mm-hmm.
And it just plays such a powerful role for them. It could really turn over your plant. I've had people going on a few trips with Derek's, he created a product called HydroGuard, which has been sold through Botanicare for some time now. When he tells people that story, they're like, wow, you did that? And they shake his hand, you really helped me. You got rid of this disease I was having, these biofilms in my reservoirs. And it's just awesome to hear stories like that. It's something you grew up with your own two hands, and then
Right.
you get to see that end product and that response from it, and it's just worth it.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. That's really the big reason why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you love it when you show someone how to grow a tree, and then a couple years later they've got this huge garden, they're producing fruit, they're feeding their families.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. We came from heavy agriculture. And, everyone's got to eat. And, the way we're farming these nowadays on such large scales, it's just, you're going to need some help fighting off these diseases. And, that's what we're trying to do,
Yeah, exactly. So who are your typical customers?
We try to get everyone. We're helping people from the ground up. We have customers that are just local in the neighborhood. We'll drive down to their house, see how their water's coming in. A couple people we've been working with their flood irrigation. We'll set up some spots where we'll drop whatever products they're wanting. Usually out here in Arizona, it's been a lot of like humic acid and soil amendments because we've got this, clay here, and it's so salty and compacted. We were using it to try to loosen up the soil. But we also interact on the commercial scale with commercial farmers. We've done some work in Idaho, Washington, and Oregon on potatoes. We went down to Yuma and worked with some of the lettuce growers, trying to cut back on some of the gray mold they were seeing.
Wow.
Yeah, with the head lettuce.
Yeah.
New Mexico, pecan trees. And we even help like chemical companies, if they need help writing up their SDS or safety procedures, that's us as well.
So I know a little secret here that our listeners don't know yet, and I'm going to call you out on it because the way you speak gives me the idea that you've got decades of knowledge, that you've learned, but you're young.
Yeah, I'm 27. Everyone calls me old soul.
Oh, yes. I can see that. Congratulations, man.
Thank you. I know, and I think it just comes from I try to listen to people. I try to understand what they're saying because I don't like to admit I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm young. And, other people that talk to me and they say something to me and they have experience, you got to listen to it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't absorb it all, if you absorb just a little bit of something and what that person said changes your life, that helps them and that helps you. And then you can now go pass that along to someone else.
Yeah.
Passing on the knowledge. It's just great. Someone's out there experienced your life before. I'm pretty sure it's got to happen. There's like billions of human beings on the world.
Yep.
As much as, we were bratty teenagers and I'm still a young guy, they've got this persona about millennials, how we're always right and we don't like to do anything.
Yeah, that's not the case.
Yeah, you got to listen and learn, It's all right to fail. I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I hated failure for the longest time. I would just get so upset and be so hard on myself. But it's just, listen to people, learn. If you messed up, do it right again the next time,
Well, and congratulations, by the way, with your success and your knowledge. But I'm 57 and everything you just said applies to me as well.
Right? We're not very different. It doesn't matter age, race, or where you came from. Once you chat with people, you realize, hey, this guy's lived the exact same life as me.
Yeah.
Who cares that we're 30 years apart?
Right, exactly. So your products are called Noble Gills, Heart, Soul, Essence, and Life. Tell me about the product names that you picked.
So that's our wisdom line. And, it's a funny story. All these creative names that came out from HiKreations. We took some time to if we had a company name, what we'd name it? Or shout out some names, and HiKreations stuck. And then we thought, what about if we had a nutrition line? What would we call it? So what's special about our products is that, we make sure you know how to apply them and at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we get the wisdom line for. And noble gills, that was just, us trying to be creative. But, there's a little story to behind all those. Our fish fertilizer comes from sardine species, which have really high fat content. They live in colder waters and they produce a higher protein content as well. So that's why we named them noble gills. And heart and soul, those are both humic acid derivatives.
That makes sense.
Right? And they're like the foundation of everything. Your soil is the key. Treating your soil, taking care of your soil, that's the key. So that's why we call those heart and soul. And the story behind life, it's really cool. Have you seen a picture of the label? I should probably get you that.
Yeah, we'll get that and put it on our show notes page, but I haven't seen it. Tell us about it.
It's leaves. It's got one leaf that's kind of brown and dying, and then, they get lighter to a vibrant dark green. But it's like life, whatever stage you're at, you can go from green to brown or from brown to green. And at the end of the day, it's all plant food, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, us ourselves, we go into the ground, we're going to become plant food. We start as green and at that brown dry leaf. Or, maybe you have a plant that needs some extra loving, you put some life down and it brings it back up to that vibrant green again.
Wow.
And then essence, that's, a very special product to us. It's all about timing and the natural hormones that are in the seaweed, the kelp. And it's not extracted. It's the actual whole plant. We don't use a harsh potassium hydroxide to remove it. Some of those kelp products will be like a black liquid when you pour it out.
Right.
We didn't go that route. We actually use the whole Ascophyllum nodosum, the kelp. It's basically dried out on the shore and then ground up and put into a liquid form. So we're not doing it. We're preserving the essence of that kelp.
Yeah.
Along with all the amino acids and plant hormones there.
So I'm going to shift on you, and I'd like for you to talk about a time you failed, how you overcame that failure, and what you learned from it.
All right. We chat about this a little, but the first thing that came to my mind was my Microbiology 328 class. This is the only class this professor taught. And when he introduced it to us, he's like, this is the hardest microbiology class you're going to take. And if you don't pass it, you're not going to get your degree.
Wow.
Yeah. He's like, I have 3 tests. If you pass them all, you don't have to take the final. He's like, they're hard tests though. No curve, no extra credit. He's like, I will allow you to earn 5 points at the end of the test, from this bonus question. And he's like, and if your questions are really good and you thoroughly explain your answer, I might give you a little break.
I went back to school late in life.
Mm-hmm.
And in my 40s, I was at ASU getting 2 degrees. And when I found a professor like that, some people cringe, but I actually like those kind of professors. They're really straightforward, especially the ones that would let me test out of the final like that.
He was pretty much that type of professor. He was an awesome professor, straight up, honest, and he taught the material really well.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't happen to absorb it very well that first time. I totally bombed the first test, but he's really kind. He's like, if you guys see your grade and you don't like it, I know there's only 2 more tests and you might not be able to get the grade you want. You could drop it now, sit in on the class, or, take it next year when you're a little bit more ready. So I ended up getting pretty much like a 60. I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? How am I going to come back? I decided to go ahead, drop the class. And what I needed was probably a little bit more of my biochemistry, which I hadn't taken yet. So what I ended up doing is I took a summer course of biochemistry, a fall course of biochem, and then I came back the next spring, destroyed the class, didn't have to take the final, got A's on all my tests. But, what I had to do was just stop and realize, hey, I think I need a little bit more knowledge about biochemistry, because this class was bacterial physiology, and the easiest way for me to explain that would be like organic chemistry, biochemistry mixed together with words,
Holy shamoles, Batman.
Right?
Wow. Well, you made it through. Congratulations.
Yeah, I did. I was very happy with that.
So what do you consider your biggest success?
So I have to give you a little bit more background on this. My grandmother is from Mexico, and she grew up with like a dozen brothers and sisters, and they basically had 4 walls and, dirt floors.
Mm-hmm.
And during my time in high school, there was a program called the Mexico Mission Trip. I went to a Catholic high school, and they offered services like that, mission trips couple of them. And we'd go down there to Tijuana, Mexico, and build a home for a family. I did it twice. I built 2 homes for them, even though it's probably no bigger than, like a shed or a storage unit you would have in the back of your farm.
Mm-hmm.
To those little kids, it was like a palace. They had like concrete floors. I saw what their homes they had before, and it was just like pieces of rugs and rotten plywood on the top of their roof. It made me think of my grandmother. Before we even finished the house, they were just so happy to have it. They were decorating it, trying to get whatever they could put together, any little decorations or little homey things.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that. That was awesome for me to see. They had dinner with us, and it makes you really appreciate what you have, especially since we built these home without any, power tools or anything. We did all manual labor, manual saws, no propane tools or anything like that. And it's awesome. It's humbling, but it also makes you like really appreciate, what a handful of people, what you can actually accomplish together.
Yeah, that has to be one of the better answers to this question. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I would love to do it again. I haven't done it in a while, and I know that there's people out there that have 20 or 30 homes they've built.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to get a couple more under my belt,
So what drives you?
I think it's the fact that I could discover a new soil bacteria or microbe every day until I die, and there'd probably be still billions and billions more to look for, It's just an endless supply of what you can discover out there. And, each microbe, just depending on what they're exposed to, may have a little bit of a different gene expression. Maybe they produce a different antibiotic. Maybe something had a mutation along the way, and this one's just super powerful. You just have this well of almost unending knowledge and stuff for you to discover.
Wow, cool. So if you could recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be and why?
And this book would be called Tweak, Growing Up on Methamphetamines, and it's by the author Nick Sheff. And this book came out, I want to say, about over 10 years ago. And it's this guy's memoirs of him and his struggles with methamphetamines and opiates. And his whole struggle kind of starts with him on the right path, and then you just see how quickly it turns into a terrible disaster. And his life is just, the way he's living it is crazy. And, things that these drugs force him to want and need, and the things he was doing to get those drugs, it's just very raw and powerful. It was a good read, but at the same time, it's just so serious, especially with our modern day opiate crisis we have.
Oh, yeah.
I like to say plants versus pills. Let's try to do it naturally and holistic. Let's stay away from all these opiates and amphetamines. If you think about it, Adderall and Ritalin, they're pretty much, just a few hydrogen atoms away from being like cocaine or meth. And, we're giving these to our children, adults, everything to say they need a focus. It's not a fix. It's not a solution.
Yeah.
They're highly addictive, and they can put families through a whole bunch of pain.
Right.
And, actually the father of Nick Sheff, he wrote a book called A Beautiful Boy. And I believe there's going to be a film out on Amazon at the end of the year about his book. It was real dynamic and just a crazy story. It's a good read.
Wow, cool. And what one final piece of advice do you have for our listeners?
Go out there and do it. Just try. My first job, I remember I was supposed to be an inspector for the county, and I didn't know what to start. And my supervisor was like, hey, just go out there, take a drive to one of your locations, and just start. Just do it. Just start.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Anthony.
Oh, it was a pleasure, man. I really appreciate the Urban Farm and some of the freebies you got out. I'm definitely looking to use that guide for the low desert planning to get something growing in my garden.
Cool. And how can our listeners get a hold of you?
You can check us out at www.HiKreations.com. We are on Instagram at HiKreations_AZ. We're at HiKreations on Facebook as well, and that's spelled HyKreations, HiKreations.
Perfect. You can find show notes from today's podcast at urbanfarm.org/HiKreations1. We are your urban farming resource. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Also visit urbanfarm.org to find articles, podcasts, webinars, courses, and more. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the Urban Farm Podcast. Claiming your inner urban farmer is easy. Grow food, share it, and name your farm. Then let the world know you're an urban farmer while supporting our podcast. Pick up your Urban Farmer bling, hats, and t-shirts at I'mAnUrbanFarmer.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Urban Farm Podcast. Remember to listen for tips, advice, and resources to help you on your journey with urban farming. You can find us on the web at urbanfarm.org or send us an email to podcast@urbanfarm.org. In the words of Vincent van Gogh, great things are done by a series of small things brought together. Be encouraged that with each lesson learned and skill developed, you are one step closer in the direction of your dreams.